Welcome into the show, everybody. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. It's wonderful to have you along for the ride. Oh, my goodness gracious. I thought yesterday was a big day for press conferences. Dave Dombrowski's 45-minute dissertation on what the Phillies were doing last year, what the Phillies did this past season, I should say. A couple of eye-opening things went through that. We'll go through all that. Also, why I just have a terrible feeling about this Vikings game. Also, a team that can run the ball a little bit there, and a team that has a quarterback that can certainly be slippery, despite Carson Wentz still playing or trying to play a lot of hero ball still behind the line of scrimmage. Why my confidence went up and down yesterday about this game. It went up because Quinyon Mitchell practiced in full. It went down a little bit because Jalen Carter went from full. Now, Wednesday's a walkthrough. Today we'll really know what's what when it comes to the injury report. But Thursday, when you go out there and you go from a full participant in walkthrough to a limited participant in like actual practice, well, they had the pads on Wednesday as well. But when you have a situation like that with Jalen Carter, where he's coming off a game that he missed, where he's coming off a media session where he said he feels great and feels like he just had his own personal bye week, and then all of a sudden he goes down to limited on the report, that's a little bit eyebrow-raising. And Jalen Carter, I know he hasn't been phenomenal this year. However, we're still talking about your highest-rated defensive lineman. And, I mean, let's get away from ratings for a second. I think we all realize your best defensive lineman. And having him in the middle of the line of scrimmage, especially in a game where Jahad Campbell could be on the edge, that'd be good. I'd like to have that. And now that's threatened. So that doesn't make me feel good. And then today, the 76ers play tonight. They play their final preseason game. That'll be against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves are coming off a back-to-back in the preseason, and that can't be fun. I would be a little bit surprised if Joel Embiid played tonight. I'd love to see him out there. I'd love to see the fans be able to enjoy Joel playing for however many minutes he would play in the preseason. I don't see the point. I don't see the point in using him in a preseason game when you know how fragile that man could be. I know everything's been great, and he's been participating in 5-on-5s and scrimmaging, and certainly made the trip to Abu Dhabi. And everything has really looked good about Joel Embiid over the last month or so of the offseason. Yeah, I'd love to see him play, but I don't think he will. And it's a weird thing where, like, yeah, sure, I'd love to see him out there on the floor. I just don't want to. I just think it would be irresponsible to roll him out there in a preseason game that matters. That's zero. And just let all the on-the-job training with everybody else, whether it's the three guards that they talked about using and trying to get ready for Paul George to come back, which obviously won't be tonight. It's not going to be for the opener. He went from 3-on-3 2 days ago to 5-on-5 yesterday, but still, he's going to take some time to ramp up, check boxes, cross some thresholds. Those are the ways the Sixers have described it in the last couple of weeks here. So that'll continue to happen for him. But I look forward to at least watching this game tonight and seeing who does participate in this one. Let's start it off with your Philadelphia Phillies. I know it's Football Friday, but I want to get this out of the way here. A couple of things on Dave Dombrowski yesterday. I'll go in order. Number one, the first thing I heard that went like, Mike Calitri, the bench coach, is being moved to a new position that apparently, according to Dave Dombrowski, a lot of other teams have. Field coordinator. Field coordinator. He's going from bench coach to field coordinator. I don't know, but I certainly think this sounds like a demotion, and it certainly sounds like it's going to be possibly a promotion for somebody else that if everything does hit the fan next year with Rob Thompson, he's gone. And the guy that's going to be the bench coach would take over as the head coach, as does often happen. So it seems like, to me, the bench coach is the next position to the manager. And when the manager's gone, like Joe Girardi and Rob Thompson took over. I don't know if they're going to promote from within. I would say if Dusty Wathan got that job, then boom, he's going to be the guy that would be they got to take over for Rob Thompson if all hits the fan next year. And I think what they want to do is they want to prepare somebody else for that role. That's basically what I heard when Rob Thompson was like, oh, yeah, we're taking our bench coach. We're moving to this new position. And then we're going to bring in somebody else to be the bench coach. That's the only change we're making to the coaching staff. Sorry, everybody. That's talking about wanting to get rid of Kevin Long and hating the Phillies approach and all that. Kyle Schwarber loves him. If you want to re-sign Kyle Schwarber, this is a big part as to why the Phillies would keep Kevin Long. So he ain't going anywhere. The coaching staff ain't going anywhere. I find it really interesting that the only move that they're making is, generally speaking, the move at the position that would most likely take over for Rob Thompson if the Phillies went downhill next year, whether in the regular season or fizzle out again in the postseason. And you want to make sure that you have somebody that the teams are already a little bit familiar with elevate to the position of manager. The other thing that I found interesting was his words about Bryce Harper. He talked about Bryce Harper, a $27 million man who's making $27 million next year, the year after that, and the year after that, I believe it is, as if he was a role player on a team. He said he didn't have an elite year. He had a good year, but he didn't have an elite year. Here's where I'm at. And I wanted to hear this from Rob Thompson yesterday. And I know a lot of people, oh, he's not going to say that. That's throwing Bryce Harper under the bus. No one's going to say, well, is it really throwing him under the bus to just say, we would love to have more production in the postseason? Is it weird to say that you would, love your star, your, $330 million man produce in the postseason as he hasn't done over the last 2 years? And I don't care that Kyle Schwarber struggled or Nick Castellanos struggled or Alec Boehm struggled or Bryson Stott or Trey Turner and all these guys. Yeah, they're not Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's supposed to be face of the organization, franchise player now, two-time MVP. He's supposed to act like that and play like that when it matters most. And he compared him to Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman hit .295 this year. He also made $27 million, by the way. He's 3 years older than Bryce Harper. And he's like, Freddie Freeman's still a really good player. Is he elite anymore? Well, and he didn't make the blanket statement about Bryce Harper no longer being elite. He alluded to, we need to see if next year he's going to have a good year or an elite year. And just talking about a guy like that on that contract who has 2 MVPs on his resume, has helped lead you to a World Series, is supposed to be the engine that makes this team go. And, somewhat sarcastically, the assistant to Dave Dombrowski when it comes to whether or not JT Realmuto was brought here, whether or not JT Realmuto was re-signed, whether or not JT Realmuto gets re-signed again. Trey Turner coming here. Bryce Harper had his hand. Hell, Jeff Hoffman out of the bullpen? He was here because Bryce Harper liked him. So I'd like a little bit more urgency, a little bit of an acknowledgement, more so that, yeah, Bryce really struggled. And yeah, if you read between the lines, Dave Dombrowski understands that Bryce Harper needs to be better. But the way he talked about him yesterday was just it was more in the vein, to me, it came off as, again, through a 45-minute press conference, what came off to me more so was, yeah, we kind of might have to brace ourselves for Bryce Harper no longer being an elite player. Like Freddie Freeman. He's not elite anymore, but he's still good. Yeah, I wasn't, when you brought in Bryce Harper, I wasn't going like, oh yeah, he's going to be a good player for the Phillies. He's supposed to be an elite player for the Phillies. And I know a lot of people jump to the overrated thing. Like, I don't subscribe to the overrated thing. What bothers me is when it gets used for whatever reason in football with quarterbacks, like quarterbacks that haven't done anything. Like Justin Herbert, he's so great. Like, oh, dude, pump the brakes on Justin, like that kind of thing. But with Bryce Harper, it's like you see it through 162 games. There is a decline. Whether or not you want to talk about the elbow injury, no. At the end of the year, Dave Dombrowski did acknowledge that Bryce Harper was fine. He was good to go, 100%, all that stuff. So I'm not going to blame his struggles in the postseason on the elbow. long season. And then at the end of the year, you got to tack on those extra games. The goal is for to tack on the extra games. Also talked about Bryce Harper not moving off first base. They see him as a first baseman. Bryce did tell the organization at the trade deadline, if you make a move where it would better suit the club for me to move back to the outfield, I'd do that. So they see him as a first baseman, according to Dave Dombrowski. That was a quote. We see him as a first baseman. He has offered to move off the spot, but we right now see him as a first baseman. Okay, fine. But the way he talked about Bryce Harper was the way you talk about like a role player. So I found that very interesting. And then finally, I'll get to some other loose ends here, but as far as three big things that came out of this press conference to me, the third thing was that Nick Castellanos is done. Now, this is not something I'm celebrating. I actually like Nick Castellanos. I think I've defended him more than most people, and it's a kind of situation where he is what he is. He's not going to – nothing's changing right now with Nick Castellanos. Like, he's not going to go up next year and, lead the league in walks. What I mean? It's like he's not going to change the approach there. He's going to look fastball, first pitch fastball, be aggressive, or I'm going to get a first pitch curveball, and here we go. He'll never understand that no one's going to throw the first pitch fastball. He's going to get those sliders low and away all the time. It was a down year for Nick Castellanos, sitting around 257, I believe it was. The obvious butting of the heads and the manager. And when I heard the report come out from John Heyman about Rob Thompson returning as the Phillies manager for another season, at that moment I went, Nick Castellanos is most likely done then. They're most likely moving on from him. And then yesterday, when he was asked point blank about Nick Castellanos, Dave Dombrowski really, mum was the word more so than anything. He acknowledged that Castellanos and Rob Thompson butted heads. Dave Dombrowski acknowledged that he got involved in the situation, did not add any other specifics other than that, but then said, we'll see what happens with Nick Castellanos. And in the vein he was talking about other things. Now to some of the loose ends here. He was talking about Justin Crawford, more or less about, hey, we're not going to guarantee anybody a spot on the roster next year, but we really like Justin Crawford. It was kind of like in that vein, like you still got to earn it, that kind of thing. But at the trade deadline last year, this past season, Dave Dombrowski said that Justin Crawford, has been looking really good down in the minors. He's ready to play in the big leagues now, or, he could use a little bit more polishing at the minor league level. I took that as, okay, we might see him this year, but we'll definitely see him next year. And the Phillies are going to look at him as a guy that they want to see start and play at the major league level. He talked about the moving pieces of the outfield, whatever goes on with Harrison Bader. They like Brandon Marsh in left field, but they also like him in center field, but they really like him in left field. They still like Johan Rojas, if you remember him. But it just sounded like through everything, and then the classic, we'll see what happens with Nick Castellanos. It sounded like, okay, Nick's done here. And I don't say that in celebration. I just say that as a matter of fact, what I gather, Nick looks like he's played his last game as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And now it's up to the Phillies to hopefully get that resurgence of some youth. Maybe that looks like Justin Crawford. Maybe that looks like Andrew Painter. Maybe that looks like Aiden Miller. These were all guys that he pointed out. What's his name? Racones as well. They really like Otto Kemp. Otto Kemp is going through, has to go have a surgery, I believe he said yesterday. He had really battled through. He admired Otto Kemp's toughness. He played through the minors with an injury. This year played with in the big league level, obviously, with an injury as well. So he's getting something cleaned up. That's the word that he used when he talked about an offseason surgery there. So a lot of interesting things there from Dave Dombrowski in the press conference yesterday. When it came to Andrew Painter, he talked about command. Talked about a guy still hitting 99, 100 miles per hour. But he also talked about a guy that really struggled with his command. And they didn't expect it to be a great year for him, bouncing back from Tommy John surgery, but they expect next year that he'll regain that command. And I think we all hope that will happen. That's what really jumped out to me. Other than that, the overall vibe around the Phillies with another early playoff exit, there was a lot of what ifs. if Harrison Bader doesn't get hurt at the worst possible time for the Phillies, then maybe they're able to pinch run for Nick Castellanos at second base. Maybe the bunt, or maybe they don't bunt. Maybe that whole situation there, with Bryson Stott works out better. He talked about Edmundo Sosa's pinch hit where he flew out to left field. He hit the ball hard. If he hits it in the gap, we win that game, that kind of thing. And there was a whole lot of, I forget the phrase, but like if ifs and buts, yeah, something like that. Basically, a lot of excuses. And the whole time he's talking about these one-run games, he's talking about Orion Kerkering's play, talking about the home plate umpire. How about this? I knew of the home plate umpire apologizing to Christopher Sanchez. I didn't know the home plate umpire also apologized to JT Realmuto. Well, it wasn't clear whether or not it was the same situation that he was apologizing for. So I found that interesting. But Dave Dombrowski's attitude about it was, yeah, we were right there. We're so close. We just played the worst possible matchup against the Dodgers, defending world champions. And it's tough, And it's like, yeah, I know, but how about on a game or in a series where Shohei Ohtani is struggling mightily, how about you capitalize on it? How about the only hit he got in the series was what ended up being the game-winning hit? That's insane. But he made every play seem like it was, well, we were right there. I was like, yeah, but that's the point. You were right there, and nobody put you over the hump. He talked about Orion Kerkering not throwing wildly to home plate in that situation. Not throwing wildly to the home plate. Oh, wait a minute. Who knows what happens in the next inning? I think we all know what happens in the next inning. You still don't hit. That's what happens in the next inning, unfortunately. But he talked about being right there, and it's like, yeah, we understand that you're right there. But what is this team going to do to not just be there, but also be over there, which is over the hump in the next round of the playoffs, and then the next round, and then the World Series. I just felt like there's a lot of things like, well, if this doesn't happen, then that happens. I did get a sense that he didn't like the bunt with Bryson Stott, and when he was kind of talking about the mistakes or close calls in the postseason, he's like, hey, Jim Leland and I didn't agree on everything, but if I asked him about something, he had a reason for it. And I right away thought to Rob Thompson bringing in David Robertson in the 7th inning after his first up-down of the season. Bringing him in, even though he hadn't done that for the Phillies this season. He said in his 20 games that, if I do that, then I have a lefty to go up against Ohtani. He had a reason. But if somebody is telling you that his reason for bunting Bryson Stott and trying to move Nick Castellanos over is to play for the tie, I don't know how that conversation continues. That's something that you're either firing somebody on the spot or you're just going to be like, I need to walk away from this before I say something I regret. My reason I was playing for the night. No, Rob Thompson today. Dave Dombrowski. That's what Rob Thompson said, but that's what Rob Thompson told us in his post-game press conference. So, and he wants to re-sign everybody, but money. There you go. All right, Football Friday. Let's get into it. First, this is where we go. AJ Brown on that offensive meeting.
Just it comes down to executing, doing our job. Right now, in a heavy phase of being accountable, and holding guys accountable, and just taking that step forward.
Okay, fair enough. This is a game against the Minnesota Vikings that is going to be very tough for the Eagles. I'm going to start at the end here. I don't like the Eagles in this game. They're actually 3-point favorites, last I saw. I still don't like the Eagles in this game. My biggest hope for the Eagles winning this game is not Jalen Hurts balling out. It's not AJ and Devontae Smith going out there and dominating, or Dallas Goedert or Saquon Barkley and the offensive line getting it together and all that stuff. My biggest thing is whether or not the defense can force turnovers and give the offense as many opportunities as possible. We all know Carson Wentz. He hasn't changed much. Hey, good for him. He's getting this opportunity. I'll say this: being to 2 Super Bowls, winning another one, winning one without him playing in the Nick Foles year, as we all know, that's kind of helped cushion the blow of everything that ever went down with Carson Wentz. It's kind of helped cushion the blow with everything that even happened with Chip Kelly, considering the trajectory of this team after it was done. So I look back on the Carson Wentz era, and I'm like, yeah, that really sucked, and that was really weird for that forever. But I don't look at this game like they're to crush Carson Wentz. I don't say it with malice. I will say in this game, they need to crush Carson Wentz because it'll help the team win. They're facing a football team that does allow sacks. They have been sacked a bunch. They allow a lot of pressure on their quarterback. And Carson Wentz doesn't help the cause by holding on to the ball behind the line, which, yes, he's still doing, by also scrambling behind the line too much and fighting for that extra yard or fighting for that hero play and the classic version of hero ball that we saw so much here in Philadelphia. He's still doing that. However, what's a little scary about all that is the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles just played two quarterbacks in Bo Nix and Jackson Dart, who also like to play that hero ball. The trick is, in those games, they didn't turn the football over. They were smart behind the line of scrimmage. They were able to escape. They were able to gain plays with their legs. They were able to buy time behind the line of scrimmage and find receivers downfield, or in Jackson Dart's case, just get out of there and scramble and run. Carson Wentz can obviously do that as well. But you can force him into the mistake. I'd love to see the Eagles force him into the mistake, and that's where I go back to Jalen Carter needing to play in this game. We'll see what the practice report says today. It's still a heel issue. It's not the shoulder issue. Listening to Jalen Carter at his locker 2 days ago now, he seemed rather optimistic about playing. I don't know if anything else popped up or sprung up over the last 2 days, but to see him bump from full to limited is a little scary. You need him to play in this game, especially if you're going to have Jahad Campbell switch positions and actually be more of an edge rusher in this one, and Nakobe Dean go back linebacker position. Getting pressure is going to be key in this one because you don't want Justin Disley getting the top in this set. Now, speaking of the secondary, the best thing from yesterday was Quinyon Mitchell being elevated from limited to full participant. Dealing with a hamstring injury, we all know how these could be. Maybe this was a situation similar to that of Trey Turner, for instance, for the Phillies at the end of the year, where he felt something, and before anything really bad happened, like you feel that pop or that extra pull, he just shut it down. Felt that tightness, felt that tug. Okay, nope, didn't shut this one down before anything bad happens. So we'll see how Quinyon Mitchell favors in this one. Jordan Addison is averaging 77.5 yards per game. Over the last 2 games now. Both those games, by the way, in Europe. Vikings are coming off a game in Dublin and a game in England. And then they're bye week. And now they got the Eagles at home at the same stadium where the Eagles and Lane Johnson won a Super Bowl. Over the last 2 games as well, Jordan Mason has done well out of their backfield, 4.7 yards per carry, the running back. Vikings offense. How about this? Vikings offense is 25th in the NFL in yards per game. 25th. They're 30th on third down. But they average 24.6 points per game. That's wild, man. That's wild. Also, as a defense, the Vikings have 13 sacks on the season. They blitz 37.7% of the time. Second most in the NFL on pressure. By the way, the league average on pressure rate is 34%. The Vikings are at 36.5%. So they're 2.5 points above the league average percentage rate. This is where Jordan Mailata's comments from 2 days ago haunt me. Because here's the thing that we're supposed to be able to rely on always in Philadelphia. And as I like to say, if you have an offensive line problem, you have an everything problem. And Jordan Mailata was talking about a lack of execution. Okay, yeah, I think anyone, you don't even have to watch film, just watch the game. Be like, okay, the offensive line didn't block there. That's not good. They didn't execute. Things like that are going to happen. But what Jordan Mailata was talking about at his locker 2 days ago was focus. Focus. The team is lacking focus. Huh? Cam Jurgens at his locker saying, I can only worry about me and my job because the moment I worry about someone else and their job, I'm not focusing on me and my job. It's like, okay, this is interesting. How is it that an offensive line so remarkably talented is blaming a lack of focus? I'll say this. It's better to hear that than Cam Jurgens say, just my back, man. Oh, my back. It's hard to do this, but I'm trying for the good of the team. Because focus is something that should be able to be like, snap your fingers and you get into it. Health isn't something you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden your back feels better. But to hear two offensive linemen talk about focus, well, how have we gotten to the point where you haven't focused yet? You lose a game to the Denver Broncos, not focused. You lose a game to the New York Giants, not focused. Saquon Barkley, 2,000 yards, record-setting season and postseason combined last year. And you not even averaging overall as an offense over 100 yards per game on the ground this year. That still hasn't made you focus? I think anyone look. That's one thing to say. Yeah, we need to focus, we need to execute, and all that stuff. But it's another thing to believe that that's the only problem. I still, and not an excuse, still feel like they're just not 100% healthy. They're not close to it. I don't think they just all of a sudden lost focus, lost the ability to execute, or lost the will to execute. I think they lost the ability, and that's overall what concerns me about this team going forward. Because, like I said, if you have an offensive line problem, you have an everything problem. It is wild to me that this offense with these weapons have scored 17 points. That's it in back-to-back games. And, of course, they lose those games. I think it's going to come down to turnovers, unfortunately, for the Eagles. They're going to have to make that happen. Also, you can talk about the revenge factor in Isaiah Rodgers as well. He's having himself a hell of a year. I caught his interview in the Vikings locker room about this matchup and, another game. He said all the right things. And he did say the Eagles were in pursuit of him. That was the only team he was talking to for a while, but they couldn't get it done. All right. So now I got to be concerned about even if Quinyon Mitchell is playing in this game, I'm still going to be concerned about whether or not his hamstring is going to last the entire game. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for that. Overall, my prediction for this one, I think it's going to be in the realm of a 24-17, 24-21 Vikings victory over the Eagles. 3 straight losses for the Birds. That's what I'm looking at for this one. Thursday Night Football, Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals outlasted and held off the Pittsburgh Steelers and another 40-year-old in Aaron Rodgers. 33-31. The best part about that is when I woke up this morning and I watched a little Scott Van Pelt. He was interviewing Joe Flacco. And as many of you know, my family from Baltimore. My mom's family is from Baltimore, and Scott Van Pelt does the Joe Flacco, does that Baltimore thing, which I know a lot of people look at as Delco as well, but they're very similar. The accents. And he was just going, Joe Flacco, you grind. Dying. It's hilarious. Hey, let me tell you about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's phlsportsnation.com. Let's get into the chat check and see how wonderful people are doing on this fine morning here. Rye, good morning. Sir Sketchable, Harper and Stott have one more postseason to do it. Oh, that's another thing. Dave Dombrowski was pretty high on Bryson Stott. Sean, and by the way, I agree. This team needs to get it together. Sean Kilrain, hello. He had the balls to say we were better than the Dodgers. All I have to say is, Sean, if he said we were better than the Dodgers, I know he said we outscored the Dodgers. Well, he scored 8 runs in one game. But yeah. DK Mr. Sandman, fundamental is a brilliant play on words. That is funny. I do this trade for Ward, the former 4th overall pick, still prime, 28 years old, 4-time Pro Bowl. Yeah, I would absolutely make a trade as soon as possible. Hip Hop returned, Natalie, for PG. Danny, hello. Bill Barnware suggests following trade for the Eagles. Tariq Woolen, 5th round pick. Seahawks receive Keely Ringo, 4th round pick. Sign me up all with that. Yeah, I'd pull the trigger on that in a second. I don't know if the Seahawks would pull the trade or pull the trigger on that. was high hip hop working at a cannibal? So that's funny. When the Phillies go down next year, right? When the Phillies go down next year. Steve, I'm still mad about Joe Carter. We all are. Ruined my childhood. I was sitting on my Aunt Teresa's living room carpet at her surprise birthday party. That was 3 months before her actual birthday. Sitting on that carpet in the living room, watching that happen. I'll never forget it. I was 11 years old. DK, Mr. Sandman, Topper is the poster guy for participation trophies. Yeah, maybe. Natalie, Freddie has 2 World Series rings. Ain't that funny? Bryce Harper's decline is nothing that some PEDs can't fix. There you go. Jason A., hello. Sean Gillespie, good morning. Sean Kilray, 96 games this year, fought the Dodgers tooth and nail. I'm bullish on the team. We're going to go try and make this team better. Yep. Otto Kemp played with a fractured kneecap. How about that, dude? Good old the tie game topper. Oh, great new nickname. Love it. Delco Pride. There you go, Natalie. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and the Trey Henderson deal. Yes, I'd pull that off too. I'm not making deals. I'm making moves if I'm Howie Roseman. And I know that there's reports out there of him lurking in the weeds. He always is. So I hope that happens sooner rather than later. More of me on Fox 29 today, coming up at 7:45. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Have a great weekend as well. Catch me on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel pre and post for Eagles Vikings with Seth and Derek Gunn. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, guys.